Hello, and welcome to our lesson on parallel and perpendicular lines. What does it mean to be parallel or perpendicular? Okay, we are going to look at this in class, but I just want to sort of go over it with you on this video as well. So, Alex and his friends are studying for a geometry test, and one of the main topics covered is parallel lines in a plane. They each write down what they think it means for two distinct lines in a plane to be parallel. Rachel writes, two distinct lines are parallel when they are both perpendicular to a third line. Alex writes, two distinct lines are parallel when they do not meet. Brianna writes, two distinct lines are parallel when they have the same slope. So I want you to analyze each definition, indicating if it is mathematically correct and if it has any drawbacks. We are going to do this in class, but you guys can just sort of think about it. Okay, so what does it mean to be parallel? So two lines are parallel if, and these are the important parts, they must lie on the same plane. That means they're both on the same sort of sheet of paper. And they never meet. The only way for two lines, two things that are straight and go on forever and ever to never meet, is if they are parallel to each other. So, this means they're always the same distance apart, and they have the same slope if they're in a coordinate plane. But remember that a plane doesn't have to have coordinates on it necessarily, so we may not have a slope. So how could we tell if two lines are parallel? Okay, so two lines are parallel if a transversal, which is just another line, crosses the parallel lines and the angles created are congruent. Congruent just means, in geometry, it means the same. Congruent means exactly the same. So you'll see over here, it looks like these lines look like they are probably parallel. Keep in mind that unless it tells us that they are parallel, you cannot assume that they are parallel. Over here, I see two lines that do not look parallel. It looks like if I continue this one and this one, they're going to end up meeting. So those ones do not look parallel, but the ones over here look parallel. Just keep in mind, you cannot tell for sure if they're parallel unless it tells you they are parallel or you have other proof that they are parallel. Okay, so how can we tell if lines are parallel again? So they are parallel if the transversal, which is just another line, so here are my transversals right there, crosses the parallel line. So if these two lines are parallel, all of these angles are congruent to all of these angles. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next lesson. But I can basically pick up all these angles down here. I can pick up like this whole thing and set it right here, and they would be exactly the same if the lines are parallel. Okay, so what does it mean to be perpendicular? What does it mean to be perpendicular? So two lines are perpendicular if they lie in the same plane. Again, they have to be on the same plane. They meet at a right angle. They have to be 90 degrees. So we're talking about lines that meet at a right angle. Remember that little box means it's a right angle. This means that their slopes, if they're in a coordinate plane, are opposite reciprocals. That means if they're multiplied together, the result is -1. So it might be something like 3 over 4 is the slope of one line, and -4 over 3 is the slope of the other line. And then they would be perpendicular. So let's look at it. We have to have a 90-degree angle. So if you see over here, I see this angle is marked as 90. And if I remember some of my angle relationships, I know that if that angle is 90, that means that the one over here must be 90 degrees because they are vertical angles. Remember, angles that are across from each other are vertical angles. They share their vertex and their sides make lines. Those are vertical angles. And then I can also tell that this angle over here must be 90 because I have a line here. A line is 180 degrees. Well, if I have two angles that make a line, and say this angle, when I add them up, they have to add up to 180 degrees. So, if this angle here is 90, this one must also be 90 because they make a line. And then we have vertical angles again, and so this is 90. So all of the corners there are 90 degrees. So here I can see there are multiple line segments together. And I see a right angle. That means that angle AGH, which is AGH, that's that angle. And then angle HGI, which is that angle. And angle IGF, which is that angle, must add up. Must add up. Their measures must add up to 90 degrees. Because they make up the vertical angle across from this angle that I was told was 90 degrees. Okay? So these are just some of the things that we're going to know as we go on. And remember that trying to figure out our angles is not too hard. If you have any questions, see me in class.